Thank you, Moderator. Shuttleworth 426. These two very important subjects in the Theological Forum, but this question is about neither, but with a view to perhaps some future work. For all sorts of reasons, we're in an age where it's important for institutions such as ours to come to terms and make admission of our past faults as well as our present failings. In the part of Fife where I serve in Kincardine, part of the old Couras parish of Old Perthshire. There was a particularly vicious and violent persecution of those accused of witchcraft between the 16th and 18th centuries, with Presbyterian ministers leading the charge. Now, a local action group has approached me. They are seeking a pardon to the Scottish Parliament and an apology from the Church of Scotland. Has the Theological Forum considered in any depth the theological basis for retrospective apology and contrition? And would it be part of their work going forward, especially since we also have a major part in the slave trade, for which we are going to have to answer eventually?
Convener. Moderator, until Alex Shuttleworth gave notice of this question, I think it would be fair to say that the Theological Forum had not considered in any depth the theological issues around retrospective apology. So I very much appreciate advance notice of this question. Issues around witchcraft and the whole witch craze are clearly very significant. The Witchcraft Act in Scotland ran from 1563 to 1736, and although these issues may seem a long way in past, they are clearly very current in the minds of many people across Scotland. I know that previous General Assemblies have approved of apologies from the Church of Scotland through the Assembly on issues such as sectarianism and apologies to LGBT people in the past. And so it does seem truly appropriate for the Theological Forum to consider theological issues around apology, contrition, especially retrospective apology for things long in the past. We do have quite a full agenda, and so I think I can't promise more than an initial exploration of these themes, but it may even be that an initial exploration around retrospective apology may be helpful to the Church as a whole, if it were minded to consider questions around the witch craze. So the answer is not yet, but yes, willing to.
If one of the lessons of ecology and creation care is that no man or woman is an island, but that each of us is connected to everyone else, that is also true of history and the legacy of the past. At last year's Assembly, my predecessor was asked by a commissioner if the Forum might investigate the question of apologising for historic wrongs, the issue of retrospective apology. The Forum agreed to investigate this matter, and the outcome is a short paper referenced in our report and available online through the Church's website. That paper does not make any concrete recommendations as to what historic wrongs, if any, the Church should apologise for, but is offered only as a resource to inform the reflection and deliberation of the wider Church. The report of the Faith Impact Forum being debated tomorrow addresses the specific issues of witchcraft trials, slavery, and other historic wrongs, and there will be an opportunity to discuss those specific issues tomorrow.
I'll read the text, if I may. Following the publication of the paper Apologising for Historic Wrongs produced by the Theological Forum, acknowledge and regret the terrible harm caused to all those who suffered from accusations and prosecutions under Scotland's historic witchcraft laws, the majority of whom were women, and apologise for the role of the Church of Scotland and the General Assembly in such historical persecution. This builds on the main Faith Impact Report, section 1.3, which says, the Forum appreciates the First Minister's statement on International Women's Day, that was the 8th of March 2022, apologising for the way in which predominantly women were accused and condemned for witchcraft, and acknowledges that often the Church played a part in feeding the fury, and deeply regrets that to be the case. Earlier this month, since Faith Impact's report went into print, the Theological Forum published on its website the paper Apologising for Historic Wrongs, written on its behalf by Professor Glenn Pettigrove, Chair of Moral Philosophy at the University of Glasgow and a member of the Theological Forum. Yesterday afternoon, the value of this document was spoken about on the floor of this assembly, and reading it before today's debate was recommended. I hope some of you have had time to look at it. The paper dissects very thoughtfully and in far more detail than I can do justice to here what we mean by an apology. First, at its simplest, when one person apologizes to another, how sometimes we make an apology for something we ourselves have not done. To quote the report, a parent can apologize to her neighbor for the window her children broke when playing ball in the garden, without anyone thinking she is to blame for the broken window. The paper also explores what a group apology means, and more specifically, what it means when a group apology is offered for offences that predate any of the group's current members. The paper also discusses how apologising for historic wrongs is not about shouldering the blame now, personally, for what happened in the past, nor is it about misapplying today's standards to past actors. Rather, apologising for historic wrongs is about standing in solidarity with the innocents who suffered, acknowledging and regretting the harm that came to them as a result of actions by the Church in the past, setting the record straight by affirming the dignity of the people that our forerunners wrote off, and acknowledging the suffering caused by past norms and policies that we no longer accept. Importantly, apologising for historic wrongs can be a step towards reconciling with those who are alienated from the Church now by what the Church has done in the past. And to bring this really close to home, I'd like to point out to you that tonight on BBC Two, there is a programme investigating witch hunts, which will look specifically at the case of Agnes Sampson of East Lothian, healer, midwife, wise woman to her community, who was burnt at the stake on Castle Hill, probably not 100 yards from here, in 1591. So, in the name of Agnes and her like, given what the main report says to acknowledge and regret the part the Church played in feeding the witchcraft fury, and the helpful framework that thinking about this, that apologising for historic wrongs has now provided, I hope the convener will be minded to support this deliverance.
Seconded?
Second.
The convener is of a mind to accept this. There is no questions. Is the Assembly of a mind to accept it? Thank you.